Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to do my review of My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 389. And once again, we are going to be having a very short chapter this week, and this pretty much confirms some suspicions that you may have had about last week's chapter and this week's chapter, as well as potentially confirming what's going to be going on within the next chapter. So, there's actually a fair amount that we can really talk about when it comes to this chapter and connecting it to the previous chapter, as well as what we can do moving forward. So let's just dive right into the review and talk a little bit more about this chapter. And for starters, what we all could have predicted to be the case was the case, because this chapter actually has a very beautiful cover page of Toga and Uraraka fighting against each other as we have the conclusion to their talk on love. And this is pretty much hinting at the fact that the next focal plot point that we're going to be focusing on is the fight between Toga and Uraraka and how that's going to be resolved, but also pretty much confirming that the Todoroki family plotline is about to be resolved very soon, especially for what we see at the end of this chapter. As well as not only this color page, but we are revealed to what the next volume cover is going to be, and it's going to be starring Toga. And let me just say that this is very beautiful artwork from Horikoshi, and it's a unique cover page, even when it comes to Toga as a character, which comes from the fact that the colors on the actual cover of the volume may be very representative of the bisexual flag, which makes sense for Toga and her character and her personality. And we can talk about Toga at a later point, but let's focus on the Todoroki family at this point. Because in this chapter, we just get the explosion happening right now, and this kind of implies what we may be predicting, which is that this chapter 389 and last chapter 388 were more or less one chapter that Horikoshi separated into two. Now, this does not mean that Horikoshi was about to release a 22-page chapter, but most likely this is going to be a relatively normal-sized chapter, but he added a little bit more fluff to each of the respective chapters so that they can stand on their own. But yeah, we get the explosion in this chapter, and many of the police officers are believing that even though the temperature is going down, that the destruction of this explosion is still very much the same that we learned about a few chapters prior, as we see that Rei, Fuyumi, and Natsu, using their ice powers to the best of their ability, are not only shielding themselves from the fire, but also trying to cool down Toya, aka Dabi, in this moment. And talking about Dabi, we actually get some inter-reflection on how he's viewing the world at this moment, and how he's finally viewing the world as a way of finally accepting that his family members are finally looking at him. From Endeavor to Rei to Natsu to Fuyumi, he believes that they are all looking at him, and that because of the mental state that he's in, he's questioning why it took them so long for this to actually happen, as he fails to realize that this is only happening because he's literally caused so much destruction and death in his wake. But yeah, as we also get sort of kind of cutting to the perspectives of the people in the area, from the people running away from the blast explosion to the heroes who see this blast coming and telling everyone to run away. And hey look, we have Uraraka as well as Toga fighting in the scene. Most likely we know that this character is Toga because the last time that we saw both Uraraka as well as Toga, Toga was still in her twice form and Uraraka was most likely able to identify her, which gives credence to why we have the cover of this chapter being Uraraka and Toga, even though we really don't focus on them that long. We only get this one panel and then they are never seen again in this chapter. But going on people that we've seen in this chapter, we know for a fact that this is wrapping up the Todoroki family plotline, because not only are we getting to see the perspective of the people that are running away, but we get the specific perspective of the kids that were a part of the training exercise with Bakugo as well as Shoto during the remedial course arc, where we see that everyone around them is panicking. They're all telling them to stay calm, but it's these kids looking at the screen of this entire thing being recorded who are the ones that are just the most calm and have the most faith in what's about to happen. Because we see just an entire 2 to 3 pages of nothing but just still images, no dialogue whatsoever, really conveying an ideal of dread and like hopelessness. As we even get a reference to the "Can't You See" kid praying and cutting over randomly to the Philippines of a young woman praying as well, which ties into the chapter of this title, which is Relief and Prayers, where we see that people are praying that the heroes are able to succeed, with those prayers being answered and a relief washing over the children, as the final 2 pages of this chapter reveal that both Shoto as well as Ida are on their way, moving so fast, and that the kids are saying, oh yeah, it's going to be okay because 5 PP Man is going to save the day, as we get the final page of just Shoto covered in his phosphor ability, preparing most likely to end the Todoroki family plotline on his own with his ice and fire based ability. And something that I want to point out, which is really cool, is that we see as they are speeding towards where Dabi as well as the rest of the Todoroki family are, we see that both him and Ida are encompassed in ice that looks like an actual aircraft. So not only are they most likely moving at the speed of a fighter jet, they also look like one as well, and that's just a very cool aesthetic, really connecting to the speed as well as what they are doing right now and how fast they are moving. But yeah, I really did enjoy this chapter, even though this chapter was a little bit shorter than normal. We can really see the connections between this chapter and the previous chapter with how they are structured, and where you can probably pinpoint where the fluff was actually added. But I think that the fluff that we got in this chapter really adds to the idea of what's going on in the world, and how the idea that people are beginning to still continue to have faith in the heroes even during these dire times and these tribulations. Because when they are in a situation where they have the right to lose faith, they don't. They pray. They continue to believe in the heroes who are fighting tooth and nail and really risking their lives to protect them. So they're planning on putting all of their faith and hope in them, so that at the very least, the heroes can continue to move and push forward to eventually save the day. And the fact that it's the children, the next generation, who are the ones that are really pushing this idea forward is pretty much just the embodiment of some of the major themes in My Hero Academia. Whether it's teamwork, what it means to be a hero, or when it comes to what it means for the people to begin to rise up to the level of heroes. This chapter pretty much incorporates those ideals to a T. And once again, this is continuing and most likely going to be the finish of the Todoroki family plotline, finally bringing all of the Todorokis together and having their hero, aka Shoto, most likely be the one to finally finish and prevent massive damage caused by their stupid brother, Toya Todoroki. And what I think that is going to be happening, and as I predicted, the next chapter is most likely going to be where the finisher occurs, where Shoto is going to use his phosphor, most likely mitigate and erase the heat that is coming off of Dabi, and potentially lead to everyone being saved, most likely literally and also metaphorically. But alongside that, we also get to see that Dabi's face is beginning to crack open, so potentially he could die during this fight. But he will probably die finally getting to obtain what he wanted, but potentially also reconciling finally with all of the Todoroki family as he dies in their arms. And potentially the same can be said about Endeavor, who is most likely taken and will take the brunt of this attack, not only from Toya, but potentially from Shoto as well. But we just have to wait until the next chapter, which apparently we are not on break, to see how this plotline finally concludes and whether or not it's going to be a satisfying end, because from what I'm seeing, I believe that it will be. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this chapter. So let me ask you, what did y'all think of the chapter? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What was your favorite part? And did you enjoy how this is going to be concluding the Todoroki family plotline? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!